Hare Krishna Mataji.
Sorry, I slept off. I was not feeling well.
Yeah. We are ready. Join us as soon as you can. Yeah. Hare Krishna, everyone. I invite you to the early morning short Bhagavatam class organized by ISKCON Radha Govinda Temple, Kulai, Mangaluru. And I indeed invite you for and on behalf of His Grace, Sri Namanista Das Prabhuji. As usual, we shall begin with the prayers. Mataji is joining in a minute or so. So let us join. We shall wait for a minute or two. She has just returned a couple of days ago. And so obviously she has a jet lag. She visited India, Vrindavan recently.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji. Till Mataji joins, let us begin with the prayers. I just talked to her. She is joining in a minute or two.
She has joined, Prabhuji. Mataji has joined.
Lovely.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'll make you a host.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranams Mataji.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna Mataji. Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranams Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranam Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Welcome back to our class, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Happy Krishna Conscious New Year, Mataji. Missed you a lot.
Yeah, I also miss everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's start. Agyantivirandas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jyotirayet Nashtaprayasya Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6, Canto, chapter 16, King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord. I'll read the summary and then we'll read the first 4 verses very quickly. Okay. As related in this chapter, Chitraketu was able to talk with his dead son and hear from him the truth of life. When Chitraketu was appeased, the great sage Narad gave him a mantra, and by chanting this mantra, Chitraketu found shelter at the lotus feet of Sankarshan. The living entity is eternal. Thus, he has neither birth nor death. Nahanyate hanyamanya sharire. According to the reaction of one's fruitive activities, one takes birth in various species of life, among the birds, beasts, trees, human beings, demigods, and so on, thus rotating through various bodies. For a certain period of time, one receives a particular type of body as a son or father in a false relationship. All our relationships in this material world with friends, relatives, or enemies consist of duality, in which one feels happy and distressed on the basis of illusion. The living entity is actually a spiritual soul who is part and parcel of God and has nothing to do with relationships in the world of duality. Therefore, Narad Muni advised Chitraketu not to lament for his so-called dead son. After hearing instructions from their dead child, Chitraketu and his wife could understand that all relationships in this material world are causes of misery. The queens who had administered poison to the sons of Pritadyuti were very much ashamed. They atoned for the sinful act of killing a child and gave up their aspiration to have sons. Thereafter, Narad Muni chanted prayers to Narayan, who exists as Chaturvyuha, and instructed Chitraketu about the Supreme Lord, who creates, maintains, and annihilates everything, and who is the master of the material nature. After instructing King Chitraketu in this way, he returned to Brahmalok. These instructions about this absolute truth are called Mahavidya. After being initiated by Narad Muni, King Chitraketu chanted the Mahavidya, and after 1 week he attained the presence of Lord Sankarshan, who was surrounded by the 4 Kumaras. The Lord was nicely dressed in bluish garments, with a helmet and ornaments of gold. His face appeared very happy. In the presence of Lord Sankarshan, Chitraketu offered his obeisances and began to offer prayers. In his prayers, Chitraketu said that millions of universes rest in the pores of Sankarshan, who is limitless, having no beginning and end. The Lord is well known to the devotees for his eternity. The difference between worshipping the Lord and worshipping the demigods is that the worshipper of the Lord also becomes eternal, whereas whatever benedictions one can get from the demigods are impermanent. Unless one becomes a devotee, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After Chitraketu finished his prayers, the unlimited Lord explained knowledge of himself to Chitraketu. Verse 1. Shri Badarayaner Uvacha Atha Deva Rishi Rajan Samparetam Nipatmajan Trishayi Tiveti Hovach Gyatinam Anusochatam. Translation by Prabhupada. Shri Sukdev Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, by his mystic power, the great sage Narad brought the dead son into the vision of all lamenting relatives and then spoke as follows. Shri Narad Uvacha Jivatman Pashya Bhadram Te Mataram Pitaram Chate Suhurdo Bandhavastaptaha Sucha Tvatkritaya Bhrisham. Translation by Prabhupada. Shri Narad Muni said, O living entity, all good fortune unto you. Just see your father and mother. All your friends and relatives are overwhelmed with grief because of your passing away. Kale varam swam avishya shesham ayu suhrid vritaha vungshva bhogan pitrapritan adhishtita nipa shanam. Translation by Shri Prabhupada. Because you died untimely, the balance of your lifetime still remains. Therefore, you may re-enter your body and enjoy the remainder of your life, surrounded by your friends and relatives. Accept the royal throne and all the opulences given by your father. You can raise your hand if you want to read this verse. Jiva uvacha kasmin janmani ami mahyam pitaro mataro abhavan karma bhi Brahmaya Manasya Devatiryan Nriyonishu. Madhumay Krishna Kant Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jiva Uvacha Kasmin Janmani Ami Mahyam Pitaro Mataro Abhavan Karma Bhir Brahmyamanasya Devatiyang Nriyonishu. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Chitramohini Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jiva Uvacha Kasmin Janmanyami Maya Pituro Maturo Bhavan Karma Bhamyamanasya Devatir Yonishu. Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Pranandini Madhavi Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, प्रणाम माता जी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि अमह्यं पितरो मातरो अभवन् कर्मभिर्भ्रममानस्य देवतिर्यन्नृयोनिषु। हरे कृष्ण माता जी, थैंक यू।
Suramya Madhavi Mataji. Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि जन्म अमि मह्यं पितरो मातरो भवन् कर्मभिर्भ्राम्यमाणस्य देवतिर्यङ्घ्रिशो निषु। हरे कृष्ण दंडवत।
Thank you. Revati Ratnangi Mataji. Krishna.
Mataji, pranams Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jiva Uvacha Kasmin Janmani Abhimayam Pitaro Madaro Bhavan Karma Bir Pramanasya Devatriyang Yonishu. Thank you very much, Mataji.
Usha Dyavati Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण माताजी, प्रणाम्स माताजी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि अमि मह्यं पितरो मातरो अभवान् कर्मभिर्ब्रह्मयामस्य देवत्रियानिर्योनिषु। थैंक यू माताजी। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण माता प्रणमालु। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि मह्यं पितरो मातरो अभवन् कर्मभिर्ब्रह्ममाणस्य देवतीर्यास्नुयोनिषु। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you. Madhumati Vilasni Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि मह्यं पितरो मातरो अभवन् कर्मभिर्भ्राम्यमाणस्य देवतिर्यङ्ग नरयोनिषु। थैंक यू माता जी। हरे कृष्ण।
आप शुभराव प्रभु जी। कृष्णा। शुभराव प्रभु। कृष्णा।
कृष्ण माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। कस्मिन् जन्मयसि मह्यं पितरो मातरो भवन् कर्मभिर्भ्राम्यमाणस्य देवतिर्यन्योनिषु।
Thank you. Uma Kulkarni Mataji. Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। जीव उवाच कस्मिन् जन्मनि अमि मह्यं पितरो मातरो अभवन् कर्मभिर्भ्राम्यमाणस्य देवतीर्यन्नृयोनिषु। हरे कृष्ण माता जी।
Thank you, Krishna. Jiva Uvacha, living entity said, Kasmin, in which Janmani, birth, Ami, all those, Mahyam, to me, Pitaraha, fathers, Mataraha, mothers, Abhavan, were, Karmabhi, by the results of fruitive actions, Brahmaya, Manasya, who am wondering, Devatiryak, of the demigods and the lower animals, Nri, and of the human species, Yonishu, in the wombs. Translation by Sharma Pacha Bhat Ki Jai. By the mystic power of Narad Muni, the living entity re-entered his dead body for a short time and spoke in reply to Narad Muni's request. He said, according to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of lower animals, sometimes among the vegetables, and sometimes to the human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents? Pampered by Shabbat Ki Jai. Here it is made clear that the living being enters a material body that is like a machine created by the 5 gross elements of material nature: earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, there are 2 separate identities called the inferior and the superior natures, which both belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to the results of a living entity's fruitive actions, he is forced to enter the material elements in different types of bodies. This time, the living entity was supposed to have been the son of Maharaj Chitraketu and Queen Kritadyuti, because according to the laws of nature, he had entered a body made by the king and queen. Actually, however, he was not their son. The living entity is the son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because he wants to enjoy this material world, the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to enter various bodies. The living entity has no true relationship with the material body he gets from his material father and mother. He is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but he is allowed to go through different bodies. The body created by the so-called father and mother actually has nothing to do with its so-called creators. Therefore, the living entity flatly denied that Maharaj Chitraketu and his wife were his father and mother. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjanjalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadabhayam Dadati Sapadantikam. He Krishna Karna Sindhu Deenbandhu Jagatpate Kopesha Gopiga Kantha Radha Kanta Namastate. Bhakta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishbhanuste Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishnavadi Paschati Deshatarine. Shri Sukdev Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, by his mystic power, the great sage Narad brought the dead son into the vision of all the lamenting relatives and then spoke as follows. Shri Narad Muni said, O living entity, all good fortune unto you. Just see your father and mother. All your friends and relatives are overwhelmed with grief because of your passing away. Because you died untimely, the balance of your lifetime still remains. Therefore, you may re-enter your body and enjoy the remainder of your life surrounded by your friends and relatives. Accept the royal throne and all the opulences given by your father. By the mystic power of Narad Muni, the living entity re-entered his dead body for a short time and spoke in reply to Narad Muni's request. He said, according to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of lower animals, sometimes among the vegetables, and sometimes to the human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my father and mother? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents? We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, Prescribed Duties of the Mankind, chapter number 16, which is called as King Chitraketu meets the
Lord.
Supreme
Meet
Lord.
the Supreme Lord.
So far we have studied that Chitraketu's son Harshashoka had died because of being poisoned by the envious queens, and how Chitraketu and Queen Kritadyuti are lamenting the loss of the son. And at that moment, when he was deep with grief and lamentation, Angira Rishi along with Narad Muni appears. And Angira Rishi and Narad Muni, they try to give some spiritual knowledge to the lamenting king to make him understand the difference between the dead and living, or what is real, what is permanent, what is temporary, nature of the soul, and how the body is accepted as one's kin in under the modes of the material nature. After that, after giving the knowledge, Narad Muni in this particular chapter has brought the dead son back into the body for some time by his mystic power. And he's telling the dead son that actually you have a balance of life remaining because the death was untimely. So you can come back and be with your family and enjoy the opulences given to you by Father. Living entity, when it has re-entered by the mystic potency of Narad Muni, is not acting as a child anymore. Why? Because the moods of material nature are not acting. It's the potency, the mystic potency of the Narad Muni which has brought the soul back. Because Narad Muni is causeless mercy, because of his mercy, the living entity is speaking from the place of realization, from the place of fully aware or being in knowledge, and not under the modes of nature where we identify ourselves as something else or something of this material world. Okay, so that is why it is not even recognizing another relationship which was in another mode of material nature. So, as we studied in the summary, the crux of the chapter, the zest of the chapter is to make us understand that how we are situated in the duality in this material world. It's a highly philosophical and analytical chapter in that way, but it also has the core fact. And this is a good time to start this chapter at the beginning of the year, because then we can set our goal that which direction am I going to work on in this set amount of time given to me in this year. Okay, so we can study that Narad Muni has brought the living entity back. Sorry, the living entity is not speaking from the platform of being a child anymore, as I said, because it is fully aware and is speaking from the platform of knowledge, and is refusing to accept anyone as his father and mother on the ground of not recognizing itself with the body that it was in before it had left the body. Okay, so Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that how the soul is so different from the body, and the soul has no connection with the body even though the soul is in the body. We studied this in Bhagavad Gita also in many places, chapter 2, chapter 13, that it is antavanta ime deha nityasya yukta sharirina anashino prameyasya tasmat yuddhasya bharata, right? For example, this the one that pervades the entire body is nityasya yukta sharirina, is independent, has no connection with the body. So, right, cannot be killed by any means. So, tasmat yuddhasya bharata, therefore fight. So here we see the application of that particular instruction that Krishna gave to Arjun, that how the material soul is so independent of the material body, and body is nothing but a machine. Is a house for the soul at the time being, that the soul needs the house, but for the time being, because it is a chance given to us to exploit the material nature until we get exhausted and tired and defeated in our attempts. Then that's one way of becoming Krishna conscious eventually, out of frustration of living of the life. But there is a danger of becoming realized out of the frustration. Then the danger is that one may adopt to impersonalism. But a Krishna conscious person is aware of what's what, but is not taking to Krishna consciousness out of frustration or anger or disgust. It is taking to Krishna consciousness because of the relationship with Krishna. And then when we use the body in service to Krishna, everything becomes spiritualized. Okay, that is the difference between the consciousness of a devotee and the consciousness of somebody who is taking up the process of self-realization out of frustration. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita, Where does he say this? 4th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Is it verse 9? That is it verse 9 that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that many people in the past? No, verse 10. So being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So it's saying being freed from attachment, fear, and anger. It's not that I'm taking Krishna consciousness because the material attachment has given me the disgust, or because I'm fearful, or because I'm angry or frustrated with the material life. No, none of those reasons will make one fully Krishna conscious. Understand that in this particular verse, please, that living entity is not speaking out of the fear, disgust, or attachment for the parents. It is speaking from the platform of real knowledge and not standing in the platform of duality. And when the living entity spoke thus, because it spoke from the platform of realization, it affected everybody there. That is the difference why we have to listen to a pure devotee. Srimad Bhagavatam, anyone can speak, right? But why pure devotee? Why the emphasis is given on the Shravanam from the pure devotee? Because it comes from the platform of realization. And when the Vani comes from the platform of realization, then it changes the heart. Okay, it changes the heart, it purifies the heart. That Vani purifies the heart. The sound vibration has the ability to purify us, but it has to come from the proper source. I was hearing Prabhupada's lecture on sound this morning, and he was explaining that how sound is originally spiritual in nature, but because of the mixture of mode of ignorance, it has become covered with material. So the sound can bind us, and the same sound can liberate us. So because he's speaking from that realization, it is impacting the heart of his so-called father and mother, and will impact each one of us as well as we will go through this chapter. That how the real relationship is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead only. Only. Everything else is in the platform of duality. So this chapter, maybe we can set our consciousness right to become more and more confident about our practice in Krishna consciousness, and not get deviated. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Any questions, reflections, realizations? 1 second, I have to just plug in like a few. Questions, reflections, realizations, corrections, complaints. I don't know if I'm audible. I should be.
Mataji.
Audible,
Hare Krishna
Mataji.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Narada Muni said that he has to the living entity, that soul, that he had